Alright, so I'm just going to run through like a typical breakfast for me, which is always going to be a shake. It has been for the last 3 or 4 years. It's just easy, I can get a lot of food in. So I'll start off with spinach. It's the one thing I don't weigh. I'll just put whatever fits in there, and that's just so I feel like I'm eating healthy. Frozen berries, which I use 100 grams, so I'm going to do 50 grams, thereabouts 50 grams of blueberries, and the same of raspberries. So I have a thing against strawberries because they just taste gross and they put seeds in my smoothie, so because strawberries are in with the mixed berries, I end up getting each berry individually. Don't need bananas, we froze bananas, but I'll put 100 grams of that in as well. 110. 100 grams of yogurt. So pretty much just put 100 grams of everything in. I bet we don't have enough yogurt. That's close enough. Alright. Okay. 100 grams of sorbet. Just because I struggle to eat enough carbs and enough food. And this makes the smoothie taste really good. That'll do. 300 mils of, it's like light soy milk. You can use any milk. It's just if I tend to use regular milk, I run out of milk really quickly because I'll have it in cereal and use it in coffee all the time. So good to keep your estrogen up.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I've had hot flashes all shifted. My nipples are killing me.
Why are we talking about your nipples?
We're not.
So we've got protein. Right now I've got earth protein, which is a mix of pea and rice protein. So that's just what we have. I'm not really picky with what protein I use. So I'll mix that with casein. Which one good thing about casein is it'll make the smoothie really thick. And because it digests really slowly, and I probably won't eat for another 7 hours after this. So that helps keep me full. And creatine, because apparently it does something. So like a level scoop. If you take creatine, you're not natty anymore. What else? Oats. And then about a cup of oats. I think that's everything. So then I have to add water to it because it won't blend and it ends up too thick. So just add a rough amount of water. And when you make this enough, you get really good at filling it exactly where it needs to be. I can do that every day. Okay, so meal 2 is usually when I get back from work, which is at about 1, 2 o'clock is when I'll actually eat. I normally have pasta, so I've cooked up some mince already and I just have to put the pasta on. I'll put up a picture of the ingredients in this, but this is basically 1/3 of a pack of mince. So I'll cook up a whole pack of mince, I'll make 3 pasta meals out of it. I'll do that twice a week. Most days that I'm training, I'll have 220 grams of pasta dry. So if you're going to weigh things out, weigh them dry or before they're cooked, because once they're cooked, they can absorb moisture differently from each time that you cook it. So this is 220 grams of pasta, which cooked might end up being 500 one day, or if I forget about it and it overcooks, it could be 600 grams. So that'll be inaccurate. And what pasta would not be complete without some stinky cheese? But tastes good, and add it in. The macros aren't too bad on it. See, at least we're getting more protein than we are fat per gram, which is always a good thing. Okay, so here's a good example of why you don't weigh pasta cooked. So all my pasta's done. We got 560. Now I bet if I cook that again tomorrow, the same amount dry, that will be different. Okay, so this is a day 2 attempt. So with lunch, or not too long after lunch, I'll have, say, a glass of juice. This is the juice I've got at the moment, so that's what I'm using. It's just a way for me to make up more carbs. So I'll try to weigh out about 300.
How about a little breakfast? The cereal cover is disappearing!
Best meal of the day by far is before I go train, I'll have cereal. Right now it's Fruity Bites, before that it was Fruit Loops, before that it was Cocoa Pops. So I'll just have about 100 grams. With 300 grams of whole milk. Okay, so for dinner after the gym, I typically have eggs, wraps, and tonight I'm having some of these potatoes.
Potatoes?
In the oven. Getting really brown. This is an easy meal for the moment because I end up coming home really late from training. Okay, so 4 eggs. Okay, 2 wraps. Alright, so that's it. The last big meal of the day. Probably doesn't look the most appetizing, but it tastes good. So, eggs and potatoes are always good.
Lovely big golden chips with a nut.
Alright, and the very last thing I have before bed, this stuff here. This deliciousness. I'll have as much of this as what's needed to make up my calories for the day. So, normally I don't like sweet things, but this stuff I can eat by the tub.